Get on your knees and suppress your gag reflex, Grandma, because it's time for Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning! Daryl wakes up after having been thoroughly stumped into the mud by the 8th floor Minotaur.
Oof, I feel like I got hit by a dick train. Oh shit, I'm going to be late for the meeting.
And realizes she's only got an hour to prepare for the budget meeting by building a dossier of recent earnings over the Maloney account. But in order to do that, she'll have to get down to the Hall of Records.
Here I go again, on my own.
After acquiring the recent records, she'll have to make her way to the 3rd floor copier. But she's held up by her intern when there's an issue with the coffee order.
The machines are all out of Colombian roast and the store's supply has been snatched up by a band of roving thieves.
Well, fuck me running then. Die, hippies.
Coffee in hand, our hero now has to make her way back to her office to begin compiling a report on the earnings data. I can't take it anymore! This game is so fucking boring! Never before have I ever been so irredeemably bored as I have been with this game. Allow me to regale you with an ancient tale of how I completed it. We take a trip back to 2013. I and brother from another mother Joe are poor as fuck. We're sharing a garage that we live in. We have no internet, no cable, very few prospects for income, and most importantly, very few games. We mostly entertained ourselves via one of 3 methods: watching downloaded TV shows, reading books, or playing whatever our poor asses could get our hands on. All said and done, it wasn't really a bad setup for 2 slovenly motherfuckers who gave 0 fucks about the future. 7 out of 10 would poverty again. But, more importantly, it was a time in which staring at a wall was indeed what I chose to do to entertain myself from time to time. Enter me, stumbling over a copy of 38 Studios' first and only endeavor, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Now, I have one rule that I absolutely have never broken, and that is, never hold out hope for a video game that has a subtitle in its first installment. This game? Dragon Age? Yeah, thus far, aside from Halo, it's been pretty spot on. Dragon Age Origins notwithstanding for being a pretty okay game, but BioWare royally fucked the series, thus reaffirming that rule. Wonder of wonders, I managed to play the game and I managed to get through it, and this is the part where I reiterate that I regularly chose to stare at a wall rather than play, and that kicks us off to the 2 big words that describe the entirety of this shitfest: boring and uninspired. So boring, in fact, that when I sat down to get footage for this game, I got about 3 hours in before I started feeling like eating my own leg was preferable, and by hour 4 I was contemplating finding out what buckshot tastes like. Escape, my children, is but the fever dream of a rot-minded libertine. While the first descriptor is easily understandable from even the most basic of concepts, the second, even with a paltry glance at the game, is a bit more confusing. How can a game be so unforgivably uninspired when it wears its inspiration so heavily on its sleeve? The answer to that being the infinitely simple, exactly. Take a family snapshot of just about any locale, and you can't tell if you're looking at a game that involved Todd McFarlane or a screenshot of World of Warcraft touched up in Photoshop. Now, I'm not going to be one to shit all over Todd McFarlane. Dude's a titan of the geek industry, and for good reason. But what in the name of the bastard children of Babylon happened here? Guess what, my diseased little deviants? I'm gonna tell ya. From copy-paste world design and art direction lifted straight out of World of Warcraft, to many of the monster designs looking like they were lifted straight out of a monster manual, down to open, empty set pieces that remain that way even when crawling through a goddamn dungeon, the game offers tragically little to keep the eyes entertained, all of which you'll probably never notice, mind you, as the camera loves filling the screen real estate up with anywhere from 50 to 85% the very ground in front of you at all times. Massive, sprawling forests with trees that might as well extend onto infinity, because you're never going to see the top of one. And when I say empty, I mean Antarctica wishes it could be so barren. Enemy engagements are few and far between, and don't respawn unless a quest demands that they do, which you'll be happy for anyway, because combat is entirely as tedious and uninspired as the rest of the game. Block is a dedicated button that never changes and will never do anything else. You have 2 attack buttons governing a primary and a secondary weapon, which is made up of all the same types of weapons that make up the primary list. It's an interesting concept to give it the simultaneous bare minimum and maximum amount of credit due. One that allows you to mix and match playstyles, by the way. You can dedicate one button to quick attacks, while the other is your slow heavy attack. Which is what every action combat game does, but hey, at least they provide you with some player agency by letting you fill up both slots with shitty weapons. Hooray! With an obligatory editor's note, of course, clarifying that you don't have to do that. You have your stereotypical set of options ranging from quick to slow to even slower. Add in wizard staffs and a bow and you generally get to decide how you want to play. Not that it will make any lick of a difference or the game any more interesting. But player agency be damned, my sweet little heroin addicts, as the whole copy and pasted from World of Warcraft goes even further than just pretty pictures. Everything you do in this pestilential affair is lifted directly out of MMOs. Clicking on every plant to get an ingredient, fighting hordes of nameless enemies just to kill the one that has a name, and yet conveniently provides no different of a challenge, an overly bloated crafting system that you will ignore for half the game as you can't even begin to craft better weapons than the random drops, until you've put about half the maximum amount of points available into blacksmithing, an inventory system in a single-player game that isn't based off of weight, but instead an arbitrary slot amount that you increase in negligible increments with purchases of backpacks. Armageddon comes before this list ends. And that's not even getting into the story. Well, say hello to your creative team for the 3rd fucking time because you should be dead, but instead you've got the power to change literally everything you come into contact with, and that's how you save the fucking world. Now, where have I heard that one 31 times before? But the game isn't all lackluster and suicide-inducing. Sure, they ripped off WoW so hard that they even got the bulky, mismatched pauldrons and oversized collars, but there is some good to be found in the game. Right? Voice acting is pretty good, but every time you talk to somebody, the game goes into extreme letterbox mode, filling that 85% of the screen with blackness while your character stares down her own tits at a midget asking for help. Not that I'm gonna complain, I guess. Want the pinnacle of boring? Here's me running to a quest, which you do a lot. Not quests, mind you, but running. Just running. Now, when I get going, a short musical score plays. Short being the operative word, as it's about 45 seconds long, and I can't tell if it was ripped from Fable or Harry Potter, and once it reaches its end, rather than looping, it just stops. I then run for 2 minutes at the shortest, do whatever the fuck I needed to do, which often involves just talking to somebody, and then prepare to do all that shit in reverse. Fucking fun, right? And you would think, with the vast well of emptiness, they would have realized the gaping flaw and added fast travel between towns, but you can go right back to fucking yourself with that one. At least Oblivion gave me the option to skip running the same path 45 times after I'd seen everything I felt like seeing on that specific trail. I guess 38 Studios just wanted to make sure I got my money's worth. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning Redeemer is an existential crisis of a game. What it does wrong can be boiled down to a simple item. It fails to do anything right. I don't know truly what led to 38 Studios' demise. I can't tell you what hill they died on because their camera refuses to point up enough to see the goddamn summit. What I can tell you is that this game is mired in a moor of unfathomable boredom, swamped in the sludge of copy-pasting other people's ideas, dying on the floor of a studio that was entirely creatively bankrupt, drowning in the trudge of its overly bloated systems and bare minimum quests. The game drowns in the trudge mank of its own making. It's a game that is so unabashedly mind-numbing that not even the addition of tits was able to save it. I'm the Necroswanson, and yes, I did just make a Homestar Runner reference to diss this game. Fuck you gonna do about it?
Lol, bye bitch.